One that I think the most of you are here for, which is the food truck issue that's going on. Maria, could you give me, on consent, number 1 on the regular agenda and number 1, 2, and 3 on the special agenda? Mr. Koretz, I'm just mentioning that on consent, it's being suggested that number 1 on the regular agenda and number 1, 2, and 3 on the special agenda.
Right, and number 1 on the special agenda would be receive and file, so.
We receive and file. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, hearing no opposition, we'll just move forward with item number 1 on consent and item number 1, 2, and 3 on the special agenda.
That brings us to item 2 on the regular agenda, which is this community redevelopment report relative to the June 17th, 2010 closure of Angel's Flight.
Do we have staff here to talk about this one?
Yeah, CRA is here to report.
Come on up. Give us a quick report. If we need to continue the item, we will, in light of all the community people that are here for the other issues. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Len Betts, project manager for the Bunker Hill Redevelopment project, and Kurt Kidder is the city attorney. Kurt Hogan, our city attorney. There was a motion requesting two items of information on Angel's Flight. One was regarding the closure of Angel's Flight on June 17th
closer to the mic.
Due to a malfunctioning end gate. The gate was not functioning due to an air compressor that needed repaired. CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, closed down Angel's Flight until the repair was made. The repair was made, and Angel's Flight reopened on Saturday. The second issue pertains to the National Transportation Safety Board recommendation for a track-adjacent walkway next to Angel's Flight. During its review process, the PUC did an in-depth review of that recommendation and approved the opening of Angel's Flight without the track-adjacent walkway. Los Angeles Fire Department also reviewed the track-adjacent walkway and felt that its personnel has adequate ingress and egress to the Angel's Flight cars via a sidewalk that runs next to Angel's Flight. Notwithstanding all of that, the CRA has contacted the PUC and asked for a meeting to review the NTSB recommendation as well as all applicable safety standards as pertain to funiculars. CPUC contacted us. They are willing to meet. They've requested that the meeting take place once their new LA chief is in place. So that meeting will take place soon. We contacted the NTSB. They have declined to meet. So we will be meeting with the PUC to review this recommendation.
Okay. So the action is, colleagues, to receive and file the motion, but I do want to report back from you on those meetings. When would you be able to do that?
I would say within 30, 45 days.
Great. So let's say by the end of September. Would that work?
Okay.
Or beginning of October?
And if for some reason the CPUC hasn't got their personnel in place, we'll inform you or let you know.
Okay. So let's just say that it'll be the end of September, October. Maria will be in contact with you when the time is. Colleagues, can I have a motion to receive and file this report?
So move.
Okay. And
with a friendly amendment that they extend Angel's Flight to Dodger Stadium so we can connect the ballpark. No pun intended for Angel fans. Okay. I withdraw it.
No. Tom adds a bit of levity, which we need in this day and age. Thank you, Tom, for that.
Thank you very much. Receive and file.
So receive and file, and we'll get a report back from you. Maria, I see that the next three motions, Labange and Koretz, and Zine and Smith, are all on the same issue.
Yeah, we should take those all together,
We should
yes.
pull them all together in a general view. The issue now becomes the food trucks. The food trucks, and I just want to make an opening comment and say that as chair, this is the beginning of a series of meetings where we hope we come up with an equitable policy that works for everybody in community. First of all, there's roughly 4,000 food trucks in the city, of which many of them have been around a long time in a historic sense. They used to be called taco trucks, just for lack of a better name, but they were basically everywhere in the context of serving people these quality meals. In the last short period of time, like everything else in our world, we're now all on our BlackBerries. Many of us are Twittering or Facebooking, and a whole new day has arrived when it comes to food trucks. In fact, I'm very fond of cheese, and I know that the Twittering crowd on the cheese truck will go wherever a cheese truck is. And what I've also learned in my own experience in my district is that when it is an organized opportunity in an area that doesn't impact other businesses that require, the support of community restaurants and areas like that, when the trucks appear, people out of nowhere show up, that people would say out of nowhere, but they came off of a Twitter or Facebook, and there'll be hundreds of people. I experienced one of them in West LA, in an area that had no issues about them being there, and it was quite remarkable to see the number of people who are fans of various types of meals and show up. And the second plus of that, of course, is people get to know each other and they start bonding and relationships, and it becomes a way of life. The downside is, and I'll just use one personal example, is on my street of Abbott Kinney, which has this First Friday, and people come from all over. It's quite exciting. There becomes an issue of where does that truck go in context of the restaurants that are there and other places of there. Then I get complaints from restaurant folks and others saying, all of a sudden my business isn't coming in anymore. They're out there eating food that a truck just appeared on. So we have to find the right balance of how we work with community, how we work with people who are fond of this, and we also need some general standards and procedures. So these motions by my colleagues suggest further discussion and study. So what we're going to do, and I'd like to get my colleagues' permission on this. I don't know how many cards I have here yet, but if it would work, colleagues, I'd like to do 15 minutes on each side if there's difference of opinions, or half an hour total if we can, because I have to be at a Board of Referred Powers meeting at 3 o'clock, and somehow I have to adjust my schedule. Now, I could certainly turn it over to my colleagues to continue the public hearing, but I'd like a sense from the two of you how you would like me to address this.
Well, I'd like to hear from the department representatives, too.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to say something, if it's okay.
Yeah, right now you can, Tommy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and I think it's important that we're here, and I thank you as chairman for scheduling this. Mr. Koretz and I brought this to the attention. One question I have, Mr. Chair, there's a request from Mr. Zine for a report. Is the city attorney here to report on Mr. Zine's motion? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Just want to make sure the city attorney is here. On that, I think we should hear what the city attorney has to say on that issue, and others to try to find out some opportunity to resolve this. And it's interesting how if I look out to the room, you see veteran food sellers from trucks of 30 years who I may have met when I was a deputy for John Ferraro, where they right now have established a pattern in practice of having one truck every other block, opposite sides of the street, called rancheros. I would just say that as opposed to taco trucks. I'd say rancheros or whatever food trucks, whatever you want to call them. On the other side here, you have entrepreneurs who've created an opportunity. Some have existing restaurants. They're attached to existing restaurants, and they've come to the place. The questions that I have are detailed in the sense of this. It is a public street, and what is allowed on a public street. Then I want the Department of Transportation to address the issue of a parking meter space. What belongs in a parking meter space? What is the parking meter space for? Then I'd like to see if they could create, as they have in the past, what we would call a food truck zone that would allow a number of trucks, 2 or 3, on a side street that would be adjacent to what would be a multiply zoned area. I think it's difficult in the competitive world that we're in now. When I say multiply zone, that means high intense density. That trucks would then not possibly have a place, as they have for over 30 years in the Wilshire Center area. Their new excitement has brought a challenge to your existence based on the fact of how things have evolved. The big issue, and Mr. Rosenthal, I don't know if you've seen these, and anyone here can see these, You see this picture right here?
Yeah.
You see that is? So this is a picture here. This is a location. Has anybody ever seen this picture before? Or image of any more, like 6, 7 trucks a block, 12 trucks? So I gotta stop when I'm done, Billy. Give me a
You
second.
got 20
I got
minutes.
it, but it's a very important issue that I want to get these facts on the table so we can spread this out so that we can see, here's a situation here where trucks are bumper to bumper to bumper. It's my intent to try to find a place for this to work out, but this is not acceptable to me as a representative, bumper to bumper to bumper. And this morning, when I visited the site, I had a meeting, ironically, at the County Art Museum. The trucks were on the side streets, and at 9:01, they came on the main street. So it's not just the business hour. They are conducting business from 9 in the morning to whatever. I think there's some regulation that could be crafted. And input. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Chair. Ask Mr. Kress any questions. See what kind of input, to see if some have ideas. I'm very open to ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could make a brief comment as well. It looks to me, looking at my piece of the problem in particular, which is more in a few residential areas that have historically fought this violation, that the main reason we have problems is our people are not enforcing the law. The LA Municipal Code says you can't park these in permit parking districts in violation of the law. You have to have a clearly marked litter receptacle. You have to remove all trash. I mean, the problems that I'm dealing with in my district are primarily in a few residential hotspots where we don't send people out to ticket these folks every day. We don't make them have litter receptacles. We've allowed them to leave trash on the properties. We've allowed them to trespass and ruin these people's lawns. And if we were just enforcing the laws strictly, our problems would be eliminated. So I think part of the problem is we need to hold our own people accountable. And I think the same is true with Tom's issue. Most of these stick out beyond the length that's allowed in a metered space. If I park sticking out beyond it, I get a ticket. Why are we not ticketing folks that are violating the law? Were we to enforce everything as it's written, I think many of these problems would be resolved, and I think that should be the first thing that we look at.
Okay, my colleagues have spoken. Now I have to decide logistically how we can do things here at this moment. If it makes sense, we could do 10 minutes or 20 minutes of public comment and then have some staff report. The staff has things to say. LADOT, LAPD does, the LA City Attorney's Office does, in terms of background stuff. But unfortunately, our time is limited. So why don't we start off with public comment, if that makes sense, or we can have staff reports. What does the community feel? We're hearing the word staff. How many would like to hear staff first, or how much would like to have public opinion first? Public opinion first. Public opinion is not first. Staff is first. Am I hearing that? Well then, let's come on up, staff. Let's move real quickly with this. So let's ask LADOT to come up, LAPD to come up, LA City Attorneys to come up. And frankly, if you hear it all and it changes your testimony, great, or we can continue this after that and have the public comment at the next meeting. I'm open. Or I can leave and Tommy and Paul can run the meeting with them. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll start with city staff, and we'll start with LADOT. Rita Robertson and Parking Enforcement Officer Christine Matta. Are you here, Christina? Where's LADOT?
She's coming.
You're going to give us an update and presentation on enforcement policies and so on.
Hi, Christine Mata, LADOT. Regarding parking enforcement, currently we enforce catering trucks when they're parked in a time limit zone or at a parking meter. We do not enforce the catering truck regulation.
Why not?
We were instructed by council a few years ago, or maybe a couple years ago, that it was unconstitutional, so it was overruled, and we were advised not to enforce it.
Is that your report?
Yes.
LAPD.
Captain Tom McDonald, Emergency Operations Division. How you doing? We don't have anything, any statistical data, any quantitative data that would suggest that catering trucks in and of themselves bring an increase in crime, or for that matter, even littering. We don't have the staff to really make that type of a research project. But anecdotally, there are circumstances where we've seen catering trucks clustering in various areas. If they're parked in a red zone, we have, or for that matter, in violation of parking rules and regulations, we have vehicle code sections or LAMC sections that we cite. If it's a call for service, then certainly we would, follow up on it, and we address it as is appropriate. If there are problematic areas, that are habitual problems, then we would typically assign a senior lead officer to go towards the causal factor of it. And quite frankly, in most cases, they'll end up working with various agencies to address the issues, whatever they may be. In this case, maybe Department of Transportation, and, well, there's a myriad of different agencies that may become involved. But for the most part, that's our posture on the issues.
Do you ever get complaints from a restaurateur saying they're right in front of my place, I can't park our cars, we can't deal with this, we can't deal with that, any of that?
Sir, we get complaints for virtually everything, so, everything under the sun, and that's not surprising to you, of course. And when we do, then we go out and we address it as is appropriate. If it's calls for service, then we'll address it accordingly. But if we have officers driving by and see double parking, whether it's a catering truck or a Volkswagen Beetle, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is we'll address it.
Thank you very much for that. And if I could ask the LA City Attorney's Office to give us an update of the various policy decisions that the council could consider or should be thinking about right now. Is that Judy?
Yes, thank you. Deputy City Attorney Judith Reel. As a preliminary matter, I'd just like to briefly outline for council what the permissible regulations, what the scope of permissible regulations are. The vehicle code generally preempts the city with respect to the regulation of vehicles, and so we look to the vehicle code to guide us in terms of what the city can do. Vehicle code section 22455 addresses the municipal regulation of mobile food vendors. When it was enacted in 1984, it actually provided that an ordinance may prohibit vending from a vehicle on a street. In 1985, that section was revised. It no longer allows the city to prohibit vending from a vehicle, but it does allow for the city to regulate for the public safety the type of vending and the time, place, and manner of vending from vehicles on any street. So the city cannot ban mobile food vendors, but it may regulate the time, place, and manner of vending for the public safety. And the Assembly, the legislature, in enacting this, broadly defined public safety to include traffic problems, loitering, and trash.
We also recently conducted a survey of other California cities. Valerie Flores, Assistant City Attorney. So we took a look at what other major California cities do with regard to mobile food vending to get an idea how they regulate as to time, place, and manner for the public safety. Virtually all the cities in California that regulate mobile food vending do so through a permit process. The permit process enables cities to specify which types of restrictions they want to place on the vending. And in a moment, I'll discuss the particulars of the various cities' approaches. But first, I'd like to discuss a couple benefits of going with a permit system. The most significant benefit of a permit system is that it allows a city to ensure that mobile food vendors follow existing city laws, and those include business tax laws, compliance with county food safety handling laws, and also ensuring that mobile food vendors comply with existing parking and traffic regulations. Currently, mobile food vendors don't have enough financial incentive to obey the city's traffic and parking rules because they can absorb the cost of tickets as a cost of doing business. On a recent tour of the cities, at least one of the hot spots, there were a lot of violations of city parking regulations that were apparent. Parking in a red zone. Some of these trucks are oversized, so they don't quite fit neatly into.
When you see one in a red zone, what action do we take?
Well, if there were a traffic officer on site, they could be issued a citation, but again, that might be a $50 citation, and one per day is maybe less, than the cost of, renting a space, and so it could just be absorbed, passed on to the customers. There also, we saw some trucks that had expired meters. Again, more red zone violations. And then some trucks, that line up, then they're also very close to the intersection, perhaps in violation of the intersection setback rules. So there are myriad existing parking and safety regulations on the books now, but because, again, the mobile food vendors can absorb those as a cost of doing business, they don't have any teeth. Under a permit system, you could require, as a condition of maintaining a permit in good order, that the mobile food vendors comply and not get, a certain number of tickets in a time period, say 3 tickets per 6 months, you could lose your license.
Right.
Then the existing city regulations would actually have some teeth, and you're more likely to get compliance. The other good thing about a permit system is you wouldn't have to post individual signs, and I know we don't have much budget these days for signage, so you wouldn't have to post individual signs that just apply to mobile food vending or new signs in an area. You could just rely on existing signs. Some other features that California cities use to regulate mobile food vending, including limiting the hours of operation. So some have maximum time limits, some limit vending to daylight hours, and some change during daylight savings time. There are also site and location limitations. For example, in San Jose, a mobile food vending truck may not vend within 200 feet of another mobile food vending truck. So you wouldn't have issues like you see sometimes in the hot spots where, maybe on regular days you have just a pile up and there's no parking for emergency vehicles or business patrons. There could be special events like maybe your First Fridays or your special festivals where you're going to allow the permit operators to gather, but you could make sure that in areas where streets are too narrow or it's just causing too many traffic problems that there isn't, a multiplicity of trucks in any one spot. Other cities also impose health and safety regulations through the permit process, including ensuring good food safety handling mechanisms, and also some require access to washrooms and toilets. And one important thing is under permit process, you can also require food vendors to carry liability insurance, not merely automobile insurance, but liability for food safety handling issues. So there are a variety of ways to regulate appropriately under the time, place, and manner restrictions that the vehicle code allows the city, either through a permit process or an ordinance. But again, there are significant benefits to reasonably working with the mobile food vending community and the public to ensure public safety, orderly traffic, and still allow vending in the city.
Okay. Mr. Alicante wants to say a few words, and he's now joined the committee, but you've certainly put up enough out there to say, get a licensing process going or put teeth in the existing existence that we have there.
Those are options.
And what I would like for you to do and a report back on this is explore all the options, meet with the various groups within the catering world, get their input, and then bring back to this committee various options that you think would effectively give us a policy that we can enforce and go with.
And if I might, Council Member, obviously we would participate in any such task force.
Yeah.
We're here to provide the legal parameters.
Right.
A lot of these are policy decisions. So if you, for example, wanted to direct the CLA or some other entity to do the report, we will certainly be an active partner in that.
Yeah, and the CLA, we do want to involve them in the CAO, and building and safety. Is building and safety in the room? I know they have comments to make about permit processes as well. So I appreciate this initial report. Mr. Alicante.
If the mobile food vendors are not respecting the violation process, what would be the incentive to respect the permit process?
Because if you could condition the validity of the permit on not getting a certain number of,
So what if they don't, if they're operating without a permit, and we
Well-
can't enforce that?
right, see, you could have an ordinance revoking their license, and you could require that trucks in good standing, bear their license on their windshield or whatever. So there could be steeper fines for operating mobile vending in violation of reasonable permit requirements.
Okay, well, I like the direction you're going in terms of accepting the fact that mobile food vending has become a part of the culture of Los Angeles. And to work with it, we'll probably have more success than to constantly lose the battle of trying to enforce it away. It's not going anywhere. But the provisions have to be significant enough to actually have an effect, because based on what you've said, without knowing what kinds of penalties would be incurred if you violate your permit, I think there would still be a whole bunch of mobile vendors who would operate without a permit, without ever registering with the city, and still be out there. And given the poor track record we have of ability to enforce, I think they would still exist. So that's gonna hinge very strongly. And the only other comment I would like to make is that part of the problem is, or part of the social issue is that legitimate restaurant owners who are stationary are faced into many times an unfair competition situation. So one of the ways to resolve this is to ameliorate their the things that hinder their ability to compete. So as chair of the Jobs Committee, I want to take a look at how can we reduce the impediments on restaurants that are closing all over the city of Los Angeles to reduce their taxes, to do what we have to do to try and balance the competitiveness issue.
Well, the restaurants and the mobile food vending trucks can coexist peacefully, and I think they both provide different sorts of services, provided that, both are appropriately regulated with regard to their food handling.
Carne asada in front of a Menchie's is the perfect match.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Labange.
I have a question on item number 3, which is a report from Mr. Zion's request on the status of, which directed, really, this is Mr. Zion in 2009, directed that we get, the city attorney recommended that we do something about this in 2009. So if you want to give us a little background, Ms. Reel.
Certainly, council member. Due to ERIP, we've been unable to actually locate the attorneys that were responsible for this case, but as far as I can tell, based on piecing together newspaper reports and talking to people, there was a ticket issued for violating the Muni Code section 80.73 B2F, which limited food vending in residential locations to 1.5 hours and in commercial locations to 1 hour. A court commissioner apparently ruled that the section could not be enforced because the city did not present evidence sufficient to satisfy the commissioner that the regulation related to public safety. And our understanding is that the city did not appeal, and that neither LAPD nor DOT has enforced the regulation since. And that is consistent with the advice that we're giving here today, which is that any direct regulation of the mobile food industry has to be for the public safety.
Right. Very good. I have other questions, but I know, Mr. Rosendahl?
Mr. Crest, do you want to say anything at this point?
Yeah, I had questions for DOT and the city attorney. Do you want to do public comment first, so you have a chance to hear some of it?
It's 3 o'clock, and I'm going to be leaving in a second for the Board of Referred Powers meeting that unfortunately is scheduled in a conflict with this committee. And that has to do with concessions at LAX, and it's a big deal, so I'm going to have to leave in a couple of moments. But there are pros and there are cons on this issue. And my final comment, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to my vice chair, Mr. Labange, is this. I am hopeful that the pluses of this food truck world can be appreciated, and that the minuses and what they cause in community can also be appreciated. And with that as a backdrop, I want us to craft policies and procedures as a city that deals with it. I appreciate your first report about other cities, what they're doing. Obviously, I want you to report back with more information. I want to form a task force, and Maria, I'd like us to put the right mix of CLA, CLO, and then obviously I even want LA, Building and Safety, Office of the Treasurer, maybe planning, with the others, and sit in a room and have a discussion among themselves as to what they propose, at the same time do outreach to community groups. And the next meeting I'd like to schedule would be when, Marie? For updates, report back, opportunity for more community.
I think the soonest we'd be able to do it is 60 days, so we'll get moving, yeah.
Okay, so in 60 days, the date certain will be given out where we'll have, hopefully, not in one of these situations where I can't be here for 3 hours, which is what I was planning to do historically on this. And so as a full committee, we can continue to discuss it. But I want to thank everybody for coming and turn it over to Mr. Labange, who will be chair of the committee at this point. And I look forward to the report backs and the spirit of cooperation among all folks that are dealing with this. Thank you very much, Mr. Labange.
Give Mr. Rosendahl a little hand for his hard work for the city of Los Mr. Chair, you did make some very important issues of report backs. CLA would like the planning department to give a planning view of this and how it affects issues related to the planning department. I also would like a report from the county health department. I believe in working with some of the organizations, the health department. You've been working with the health department, and they're coming online to rate the food trucks as they rate restaurants. We should get an update from the health department as well. Another issue is a full review of, with the National League of Cities and the California League of Cities, what other cities are doing throughout the nation, and look at some other models. Also, I think it's important that we have a report from Finance, Office of Finance, as it relates to this. And the big question, I want Mr. Fisher, you're a big man over there at DOT. I want you to sit up here. I'm going to ask you one question, John. John Fisher is the historian as well as the Assistant General Manager of the Department of Transportation. John, here's the question. If you can answer it now, answer it. Or if you can't, we'll have you research it. What is the parking meter established for?
The parking meter is established to support the time limit restrictions that are there to ensure turnover. The parking meter helps ensure turnover and that people have to pay for the parking.
So do you think, in my concept of trying to create, because you and your many, many years of service to the city have created unique zones, whether they're passenger loading zones, the handicap zones, the yellow commercial zones, the 5-minute zones, that we could create a zone that possibly would then exempt a food truck? Because a food truck, as I said, sometimes they're multiple hours. We would have to create a zone to allow that to happen, right?
If that would be legal with the vehicle code, I would have to research that.
Correct. And also the other thing, too, I wanted to mention, in my research, we'd want to have it on the downside of the street or the upside of the street so it doesn't affect the visibility to the tri-light to the signal. If you're on the street and it blocks or comes within so many feet, and is there a regulation now that prevents oversized vehicles within an intersection area as far as the visibility triangle? Because also what will happen if we don't regulate, something may happen. And if we don't have anything on the books, the city then is liable, and for safety, which is so important.
Generally, within any business district, we have 30 foot of red curb on the approach to an intersection or on the approach to a traffic signal. Where we have a marked crosswalk that's unsignalized, and we put in a longer length of red curb so that the motorist and the pedestrian can see each other when the pedestrian's crossing.
Right. And also, I think we want to look, Madam CLA, at what cities that are close to Los Angeles. Mr. Alarcon mentioned as far as how restaurants, some cities have more restrictions than us. Is that advantageous for Los Angeles, or does it hurt Los Angeles if one city has no restrictions or a restriction that pushes more of an activity here? And lastly, how many taxis we got in the city of Los Angeles?
I'm not sure. I think it's something like 3,000.
But you regulate each taxi, right?
Yes, we do.
Because the other concept I would like to study, should we say there should be a certain number of food trucks? Should there be a number of food trucks in there? Does anyone have any feel on that? At all, too? I want to hear from the associations, and I want the associations to come with ideas. I've worked with the associations. Some I've had ideas from. Some I haven't ideas other than just say, figure it out. It's free enterprise. It's a free street that we're to protect for everybody to use. And so these are some of the ideas that we have to look at to say, let's say, as we regulate taxis, we would regulate food trucks and say we would say there would be 4,000, and where would they be? What zones would they allowed to work in? That's why I want the planning department involved. Mr. Koretz has a problem in residential zones. I have an understanding that the C4 zone, which is, let's say, Wilshire Boulevard or Hollywood, may be able to adapt this as long as it's not clustered all in one spot, similar to the long-time existing of the food trucks in the Koreatown, Wilshire Center area, where they're on every other block, one space at the head of the street. So these are some things we want to look at, John. And for the record, how much is a ticket for a 1-hour zone violation?
I believe it's $55.
$55. And then do you give repeated tickets if I'm there 5 hours?
No, just one.
Okay, and why don't you give repeated tickets?
It's not our policy to. We'll give it if they don't pay the meter. They'll get a meter ticket and a time limit ticket, but they won't get more than one time limit ticket.
Right. And would the city attorney have an interest in that, in the sense that if someone gets 10 tickets, even though they pay them all the time, I would hope they pay them all the time because they wouldn't want to impound their vehicle, but is that, would a court look poorly on the city if we just are charging people their cost of doing business by the ticket, not by the regulation?
Councilmember, we're willing to consider any suggestion brought by council and analyze its legality. And again, so long as we could demonstrate that it is a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction that serves the public safety, I believe that we're willing to defend that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kretz, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, a few questions. One for DOT. We appreciate everything DOT's been doing for the city, and we know you've lost significant staff. But as I understand it, it shouldn't be in parking enforcement because we've limited furloughs and layoffs, et cetera, to non-revenue generating positions. So if that's the case, why are we having so much trouble enforcing against egregious violators, particularly in my problem area in a permit parking district in residential?
With the catering trucks or just in general?
No, we have catering trucks that go to certain spots. We know when they are. It would be very easy to enforce against them. They're in clear violation of parking laws. And it's not just a cost of doing business that they accept the parking tickets they get. It's largely that they're not getting the tickets.
How you doing?
From what I understand, that we are enforcing every catering truck if they are in violation of the 1 hour or the meter zone. I can check on the locations for you if you can give that to me.
Okay, we'll give you the locations. I don't think it's anything new. People have been complaining about these for years.
Okay.
And there are also a lot of safety problems as a result because 100-foot-long trucks come along and stop in front of people's driveways and eat for half an hour. There's also the violations that I mentioned earlier. They don't put out trash receptacles. Trash winds up on the same people's lawns every day. Their lawns are ruined by people walking on them as part of this process. So the question number one is how do we get enforcement? The other thing I might suggest as an enforcement mechanism, I think it makes sense that if you make a mistake, you park at a meter, you don't realize you're at a meter, you get one ticket. But in a relatively unusual circumstance, you have people who are getting a ticket and they're saying, I'm not moving. I'm right here, I know I'm getting a ticket, I'm not moving. So whether we could do more than one ticket when you actually are ticketing someone that is there to receive the ticket and is in conscious violation, as far as I'm concerned, you could go every half an hour and write them a new ticket. After they have 5 tickets or 10 tickets, you boot them. I mean, we could be that aggressive. if we wanted to enforce the real law. And then if we want to find some way to actually work in a cooperative way, we could create larger spaces for these vehicles. We could allow meters with more time if we're looking for a solution. But in the meantime, you have oversized vehicles parking jetting out into the red. Do we want to continue just letting them do it, or writing them one ticket and knowing it's the cost of doing business?
Senator Tables been joined by Rita Robinson, General Manager of the Department of Transportation. Ms. Robinson.
Good afternoon, council members. I just want to clarify on the issue of enforcement. Even though our traffic officers are not furloughed, we're down 60 officers in the department, so we just don't have the current workforce that we used to have to spread ourselves. But as Christine said, we'll look into those areas that you seem to have repeated trouble in and see if we can, enforce those areas more aggressively. But just because we're not on furlough doesn't mean that we have the same workforce that we had. We have to hold back employment of traffic officers because we just really don't have the general fund dollars to put out there until we kind of know where the budget is settling. So just want to make clear in terms of rehiring officers.
Now, do we not make money on every traffic officer that we have in our
force?
force?
On traffic officers, but that's if we had money to spend to make the money. Because right now we have certain money, salary dollars in our budget, and if we don't have salary dollars to spread that far, we can't hire staff.
So
we have salary savings factors and payouts in each budget that impact how each budget is managed.
Well, this is something we should address on a budgetary basis beyond this.
That's not, that's absolutely true, but I just wanted to clarify that the workforce is not at the same levels as we once had. Even we're grateful that they're not furloughed, but we're still spreading our dollars thin and saving our money until we kind of see where the dust settles on the budget itself.
Okay, and I thought the council gave direction in the budget process that we wouldn't reduce any positions that were revenue generating.
Not that we wouldn't reduce, we just wouldn't furlough. We have a managed hiring process that determines who's hired and who's not, and that depends on how much money is in each budget. It's just a clarifying issue.
Okay, well, we'll have to address that through the budget process.
But on the other end of this is that, as much as we want to enforce, certain vehicles, these vehicles are, you want continuous enforcement. We also have to realize that we can't selectively decide which vehicles. So if we decide to aggressively look at vehicles as a whole as a city, and every hour we want to cite them, it has to be all vehicles that are in that infraction. So whether they're cars or...
If we wrote it in such a way that it was all vehicles with a person with them,
with a person with them?
All vehicles where someone was present to receive the ticket. I think we could do that.
Well, could I want to intervene just because
Mr. Alarcon.
My memory is the same as Mr. Koretz. We exempted positions from layoffs and furloughs that were revenue generating. So I'm not understanding why.
They're hiring new ones. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
You're correct. They're not laid off.
But the logic is consistent. Why would we not hire revenue generating positions?
Because if we don't have money, if I don't have money in my budget to hire them and pay them in my salary account, I can't hire them. I have to have, if you get $100, but I have to hold back enough money to save for salary savings, and I have to hold back enough money to pay payments out, I have to be able to spread that money to all the employees.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying it's dumb.
Well,
and I thought we gave direction not to do this.
I think you already did.
We may have a moment of agreement that we've never seen before, Mr. I'm not going to go there with you.
I just want to say, too, on this issue, I don't believe the traffic officers are coming to work every day to produce revenue. They're produce safety, turnover, traffic regulation, enforcement. And I would not want our city to be known as revenue-producing officers to go out there. Do you know when the policy was set on one ticket per vehicle?
When it was set?
Right.
I've been here 25 years. It's been the same.
Right, so it predates that. I know sometimes there was a problem before where they would hang tickets on street cleaning cars, and all of a sudden the car would be there for weeks, and they'd have 5 tickets. So maybe it was about this a long, long time ago.
No, I think that's fine
Could-
to
could-
revisit that issue,
Yeah.
to discuss how
Could
we
I-
would apply it equally.
So, Maria, if you could add that too, as far as the policy.
Could I just ask that this whole issue of adding more officers, I mean, if we're going to design any program, and we don't have the enforcement capability to ensure that that program can be implemented properly, then we're wasting our time. So I think a key part of this discussion needs to be how to bring those officers back and how to hire
Have
more
some ideas on how to
officers.
do that. We've been discussing in measure with what we're trying to balance with regard to the budget.
Forget
You know,
that.
is-
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if the city attorney and we're going to figure out a program designed to effectively regulate food vending vehicles, then a key part of that is our ability to enforce the program that we design.
Absolutely.
So, notwithstanding your work on expanding the officers relative to the existing budget, the plan has to include a plan for growing those enforcement officers relative to food vending.
Councilmember, I believe that could be part of the report back, because
Exactly, that's
if
what I'm
there's a
saying.
regulatory program, it can be supported by a fee. The fee is not to generate revenue for the city of L.A., it is to pay for the
Right.
cost of the regulatory program.
Exactly, so it should be cost neutral, but we if we can't do a good job now, we're not going to do a good job just because we have laws in place. I mean, it's the enforcement piece that is weak. So we have to enhance the enforcement piece in order to have success with whatever project we design.
And also want to add too, if a district that is created in the future, I want this question, Maria, that is in a bid district, a business improvement district, would that vehicle, if it had a permit, if we develop a bid, be required to be part of the bid if they do business in the bid district, if that is corrected there? There's Wilshire bids, there's Hollywood bids, there's downtown bids. All this stuff should be something. This is it there. Anything else from the staff? Ms. Flores, you have anything else you want to add? Anybody, city attorney, everybody, county health department here? Would you like to say hello? Thank you very much. This is the county health department. So,
Good afternoon. My name is Terrence Powell. I'm with the Department of Public Health, Division of Environmental Health.
thank you, Terrence.
And I just want to offer a couple comments. First and foremost, when you are considering your parking, sorry, is that better? Your parking planning and so forth, to consider the needs of the mobile food vendors. State law requires that any mobile food facility that remains stationary for more than 1 hour have available at all times of operation fully functional and approved restrooms. Having said that, that has been one of the major violations that we find now in today's times of mobile vending. Our recent inspections that were done, for example, in Venice, out of the 16 vehicles that we inspected, 25% of them did not have available restrooms. The importance of restrooms is one of the major factors in preventing foodborne illness, and is a safety issue with respect to the production of food and the consumption of that food. We require something very straightforward in terms of those restrooms, that they meet the health and safety code in terms of the facilities that are there, that the soap and towels, for example, be single service and not be reusable, that there be hot and cold running water available at all times, of course that the toilets are functionable, and that the restrooms themselves are clean. Also, that those facilities that are designated, that they be within 200 feet of the mobile facility, and that would mean that it would also have to be on the same side of the street so that food handlers can easily access those restrooms. One of the major considerations here is that mobile facilities that remain stationary have to prevail on either businesses or other locations that do not belong to them to use those restrooms. We require a restroom letter. Oftentimes those letters are not provided, or the restrooms are simply not available. And I'd ask that the council and this committee consider those when making your parking recommendations and planning.
Do you have any letters for any part of Wilshire Boulevard now?
Pardon me?
Any part of Wilshire Boulevard, do you know of any letters on file?
I'd have to check. We have in our inventory approximately 6,000 mobile catering trucks. That's not inclusive of those that are non-motorized.
Right.
And that's countywide, and it varies from community to community as to how much available those restrooms are and which businesses would
Right,
participate
and
in
is
the
it,
process.
you know, if the county health department has a plan to rate trucks, A, B, C, or,
It is our intention to expand our existing grading program, which affects restaurants and markets and the like, fixed facilities,
fixed facilities?
that we are going to now move into the mobile food facilities. They are all under the same laws. They all have the same standards in terms of food safety.
Right. Does anybody have any objection to the county health department expanding the service of rating trucks like this? So we're all agreement on that. That's very good. Okay. Thank you, Terrence, very much. Where's your office, on Figueroa?
No, my office is in Baldwin Park.
Why, you come all the way downtown.
The edge of
Okay.
the planet.
Thank you very much. Say hi to Dr. Fielding when you talk to him. Thank you. Okay, no other city departments need to report at this point now. I'd like to have public comment, and I'll call the cards in the order here. And if people would want to speak, we'll give 1 minute to speak. Aaron Glenn, and I'll call four out: Matthew Geller, Miss Ross, Leah Ross, and Peter Barnett. You got to take your seats right here. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll begin. 1 minute is a short period of time, but I'll
Do
try
the
to...
best you can. If you keep going over, but thank
Okay.
you.
Well, first of all, I just want to make a couple of clarifications.
Please identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Erin Glenn. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Asociación de Loncheros. I just want to make a quick clarification about I forget the woman's name, forgive me, that said that mobile food vendors are able to absorb the costs of their tickets. I have to say that that's not necessarily the case for most of our members. One of our members being the person that challenged the 8073 B2F municipal code because he could not pay the fee of getting all those tickets. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And since then, we have worked really hard with our association to ensure that our members are complying and, really practice good business.
Please keep speaking.
Good business practices for the community. I also wanted to say that we have actually come up with a proposal, and all of your deputies should have this. But basically, the key point that we're making is that we actually would like there to be some kind of permit process, a renting of a space, if you will, maybe not an actual physical space, but being able to pay a fee annually to operate. This fee would include, would be like, the issuing of the medallions for the taxi cabs, for instance. And with that, when trucks are not complying, a fining process would go, some kind of fine would be appropriated, and then the fines would then be able to the money generated would be able to regulate, this part of the industry.
You have a copy, your legislative director, Schechter, right there, if you have a copy. Do you have one of those?
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have extras, make some copies
Sure.
for the committee.
And then also, we are very much in agreement with there being some kind of task force, but we would also like to be involved.
Right.
We want to definitely be an integral part of the process. To address the zoning issue, I have to say, I hear the word zoning and, I get really scared because our members have been operating in the city. They're the traditional vendors, the people that have been doing this for 30-plus years. Our fear is that if they fall outside of the boundaries of whatever the zoning process would be, they wouldn't be able to operate their businesses anymore. I mean, this is our folks' livelihood. There is no other option at this point. I really don't want to have to tell my member, this whole situation is changing when they've been compliant. I mean, I'm not saying everything's perfect, but since 2008, we have worked very hard with law enforcement, LA County Health, DOT to kind of put this best practices, in order. So again, we really want to work with you all, but I would request that we do some kind of field work and really kind of get to the bottom of what some of the issues are before reports and ordinances are generated and
You ever
enacted.
received any calls from anybody wanting to do field work from City Hall?
I have, in fact.
You know anybody in this room? Could you point them out?
Mr. Tom LeBon.
All right, so we look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew, take a few extra minutes,
I'll
please.
try and keep it as short as I can. I just, wanted to revisit the enforcement issue. And when the Department of Transportation is talking to you, they're talking to you about 80.69. And in 80.73, there are codes in there that make it so that trucks have to abide by the regulations. If they don't, it's not just a parking ticket. So I think that should be investigated. Everybody's been lacking some hard data, and one of the things that I wanted to point out, and Councilman Labange has said, he wants the trucks to be there. But one of the things, if the trucks weren't on Wilshire, we surveyed 146 people to ask them where they would go for lunch. And out of a week, they said that there would be 157 trips per week. They would actually get in their car 157 times, drive on the freeway or on the streets, and go find another restaurant in an area, within a few miles. And the total miles on that would be about 93 miles.
Keep going.
Okay. And we had 369 people, or 369 days of people packing a lunch. So actually not involving themselves in commerce at all, and actually just packing a lunch and staying in their office. And then there was also 193 days of people going to the local area restaurants. And what I'm trying to show by this is, there is a service that the trucks are providing on Wilshire. It's giving varied cuisines and giving people options. And I hope that whatever we come up with helps to keep that in place, so that the consumer continues to get a benefit, not just from local area restaurants, but also from trucks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing this issue today. I am Leah Ross, and this is my colleague Peter Barrett. We represent the Border Grill truck. We have a brick and mortar restaurant as well as a gourmet taco truck. We do not belong to any truck associations. We want to see a reasonable and viable solution to the issues with food trucks in Los Angeles. We think that solution is going to come from continued communication, research, and goodwill between the truck community, the Department of Transportation, the LAPD, Health Department, and City Council. With assistance with the city attorney, from the City Attorney's Office, we hope the Council can address any public safety issues with food trucks without adversely affecting the long-standing tradition of Lonchero trucks in Los Angeles, and while embracing the new gourmet food truck culture as a positive addition to what makes Los Angeles a culinary destination.
Thank you very much. Good. All right, next four. Thank you. John Baller, Molly Taylor, Michelle Grant, and Andrew Cousins, is it? From Englander Company. Is Andrew still here? Okay. Thank you. Please.
Mr. Chairman, honored council members, my name is John Bowler. I operate the barbecue catering truck. I've also owned a brick and mortar restaurant for 25 years, and I've also been a city council member and mayor in a South Bay city. So I can kind of appreciate what you're trying to deal with when there is a paradigm shift in an industry like there is today. I'd like to try and dispel real quickly the idea that these food trucks are operating without regulation or without licensing and oversight. First of all, there's 80.73 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code that we all have to, that provides a regulatory framework, including misdemeanor fines. I currently carry a health department permit for the County of Los Angeles, a temporary and interim health permit for Orange County. I have to get one for Long Beach and Pasadena. I carry a city business license for the City of Los Angeles, the City of Santa Monica, and again, Culver City is in the process, and Beverly Hills, with your permission. All these permits, I've had more health inspections already on my truck in a year and 2 months than I had in my we probably had 5 in a year, whereas in a restaurant, I was lucky to see 2 or 3 a year. They're very common, and we welcome them because we certainly want to be a health-inspected truck. But I have fire department on numerous occasions. We are constantly regulated, constantly inspected to make sure that we are up to standards. I think that what we're facing here, as I was saying briefly in the beginning, is a paradigm shift in the food industry. That when I had my brick and mortar restaurant, I had to concentrate on getting people to come to my restaurant. This new shift is now taking the food to where the people are. In reference to the photographs that you were showing earlier, Chairman, I have to, first of all, I understand your concern when there's that many trucks. But we also have to realize that they are there because your constituents are shopping at those trucks. There is demand for these items, and those trucks could not have been there were they not doing sufficient business. So there is demand among the city of Los Angeles, citizens of Los Angeles, to have affordable food nearby to their places of work, and that's what we're providing. Thank you very much.
Where were you mayor?
Pardon me?
Where were you mayor?
Hermosa Beach.
Can I ask you a tough question? Did they allow catering trucks in Hermosa Beach? At parking meter zones for 5 hours a day?
Well, first of all, they have a law right now that limited it to 15 minutes because they are still in the old paradigm of the construction.
How long were you in Hermosa Beach?
I was there for 8 years.
And did you ever know Ed Loosely?
No.
Planning Commissioner?
Not by name.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Molly Taylor, and I'm with the Sweets Truck. We've been active in meeting pertaining to this issue for a few months now with different council offices. And we've been asked as an industry to provide solutions for a problem that has yet to be completely defined. My concern is that each council district, each with seemingly very different issues, some which are very, very legitimate and others seemingly lobby-driven, have asked us to navigate a very complex situation that we're just not sure has a resolution at this point. We are eager to work with council towards equitable solutions for all small business. There is no doubt that our rolling restaurants are a unique twist on an LA favorite. It's our new visibility, our community involvement, and most importantly, our ability to create community wherever we park that our fans, followers, and community partners want to defend our right to do business freely and fairly. I'd like to submit for public record letters from our community partners as well as wholesale partners that I have, as well as licenses that from different cities that I'm able to do business.
Thank you. Can you present that to the clerk? Would you get that for the clerk, Ms. Schechter? Next, please. Michelle from Culver City.
Michelle from Culver City. My name is Michelle Grant, and I have a truck called the Grilled Cheese Truck. I have a brief statement. Thank you for taking the time to open this forum to public discussion. While the industry you're discussing here is many decades old, the renaissance of street food is in its infancy. My business, the Grilled Cheese Truck, has been open for just under 10 months. In that time, we've gone from 2 people with an intriguing take on classic American comfort food to a company that holds business licenses in 5 cities in the greater Los Angeles area, with 2 trucks, 20 employees, many of whom had been unemployed for more than 6 months before they came to work with us, and a following of more than 30,000 people via social media, a substantial percentage of which are here in the greater Los Angeles area. From the beginning, we have aimed to be a part of the community wherever we are, whether by partnering with local businesses and food establishments or by participating in events that give back to the community. We recognize that there may be issues that need to be addressed, but this is not unusual when an industry booms as rapidly as this one has. It is our fervent hope that any and all issues can be dealt with an even hand. To that end, we are open and happy to be a part of the process to come up with equitable solutions, to find equitable solutions to the issues at hand. This said, we strongly feel that in this tenuous economy, it should be incumbent upon the city not to further hamstring a burgeoning industry that is clearly meeting the needs of thousands of Angelinos, but to utilize the regulations that are already in place and moreover to encourage the entrepreneurial spirit that is driving this new street food movement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next four will be Richard Gomez, Nicole Shahalian, is that right? Sorry, Nicole. Tom Patterson, Dennis Rohde, is that correct? Rohde, I'm sorry, thanks.
Hi, Nicole Shahanian, Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Chamber, I'm here to express our strong concern with the proliferation of food trucks that are siphoning businesses from many established Hollywood restaurants. In recent months, we've seen a significant increase in mobile food vendors. Whereas these trucks used to concentrate on industrial areas where there was a lack of restaurant options, they've now moved into central Hollywood, parking adjacent to existing restaurants. These trucks take cash only, are hard to inspect for the health department because they are mobile. They don't contribute to the city's tax base. They don't pay rent. They don't pay business improvement district assessments. They use our maintained streets and sidewalks, our trash cans, our parking spots, and more. Because they do not have the same overhead costs, the mobile trucks are undercutting the city's existing restaurants. They literally roll in, take the business and our tax dollars and leave. Meanwhile, many of the tenants who are already struggling to stay in Hollywood are seeing their revenues decline dramatically. Some restaurants have reported that if something isn't done and done immediately, they'll have to close down. Real estate brokers are telling us they've been turned down by possible tenants, citing the proliferation of these trucks in general. Basically what we're asking is that you really look at the parking in particular. We definitely support business in all forms, but think that there's a way that we can not have these trucks come in and siphon our restaurant business.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gomez?
My name is Richard Gomez. I'm with Baja Enterprises. We do business as AA Cater Truck Manufacturers, and we've been in business since 1965. We have building catering trucks, taco trucks, industrial catering trucks, motion picture trucks. This past 3 years, we've been very busy with the economic downturn, and the gourmet food trucks have been able to keep our company afloat. We went from 150 employees down to 50 employees. And now with the gourmet food truck movement and trend, we have hired 2 more employees, and we have made some of our temporary employees into permanent full-time employees now. The Los Angeles gourmet food truck trend has awakened this whole trend into the whole United States. And this whole movement is booming now. We have inquiries in Dubai, we have inquiries in Japan, in Korea, and we think we should support this whole group and make regulations that will be able to benefit everybody.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Tom Patterson, I'm the office manager for the Holmby Westwood Property Owners Association. We are in the 5th Council District. Councilman Koretz is very familiar with all the problems associated with catering trucks in Holmby Westwood. I would ask that the motion that was introduced about a year ago, that you move your time frame up from 60 days to 45 days. There's been plenty of time made available to this issue, and we've developed a lot of information, particularly with respect to the safety problems associated with catering trucks in residential zones. I think it's time to move forward on this issue and move forward more quickly than you plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me. My name is Dennis Rohde, and I own several restaurants in the LA area, one on Wilshire. I echo the sentiment of the first young lady that spoke down there, and I don't want to repeat all of the things that she said. I can look from the front door of my restaurant and see up to 15 food trucks in a 1-block area. It's pretty frustrating when they get 1 ticket, or even if they get 2 tickets and stay there for 4 or 5 hours, and obviously they're considering this just a cost of doing business. It doesn't seem fair. It seems that we have a health code violation going on when somebody stays over 1 hour. If they're parking on a 1-hour meter and not leaving after that hour, particularly after they've been cited, it's in my mind, a flagrant violation, and I think something should be done to mitigate that.
Thank you very much. I had a couple seconds left on my time. I'd like to ask that we
I was going to compliment you, Tom, for saving some in the bank, but...
I'd like to make sure that we're included in any task force that's created.
Certainly. I would think from a committee standpoint and city staff that we can look at it from Mr. Koretz in one group, which is more of a residential issue, which may have that, as far as everyone's time in getting together, and then also in the Wilshire Hollywood corridor downtown is another. But we'll work on that.
Mr. Bonds, I have to insert myself into this process. the Transportation Committee has the jurisdiction over matters related to transportation, but the Jobs and Business Development Committee have jurisdiction over matters regarding the economy. So I would, with regard to how this affects business and the economy, I would ask the President that I assume jurisdiction over those matters. But with regard to the transportation issues, they're appropriate for this committee.
Well, I think we'll discuss that with the President of the Council, because
Yeah.
this issue has been over a year when Mr. Zion first put it
Exactly,
in,
we
and
need to get
people are
something
anxious
done with it.
on that.
And it's obviously not moving. So, but I maintain that with regard to all the issues that we are considering related to business retention and development in the city, this is something that our committee needs to look at. Now, I think
You could look at it from however you want to define it, but these are parking issues that we're going to
Exactly,
focus
that's what-
on
that's what I'm
and
saying.
try to get an answer to come up
Can I
with
finish?
consensus. No, but I just want to
Can
make
I
it clear.
finish?
No, I want to make it clear, Richard.
I want to make it clear also. I have no problem with I sit on the Transportation Committee. I don't have a problem with discussing issues related to transportation concerns. But when we enter into issues that are related to the economy and business-related matters, that is the jurisdiction of my committee, and I would recommend, and I will work with Mr. Rosendahl, but that we work together as a joint committee on this issue. But I just wanted to say that this is an issue that does need to be resolved, and it has been dragging. No, it hasn't been a year. It's been since I was on the council in 1993 that this issue has been pending, and it's not getting any better.
Thank you very much. So we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Elias Esparro, Natalie Garcia, Pedro Ruiz, Guadalupe. I want to pronounce your last name correctly, Guadalupe.
So I'm going to be the one translating.
Okay, thank you. Take as much time as you need.
Mi nombre es Elías Ibarra.
My name is Elias Ibarra.
Tengo de lonchero 25 años.
I have been a lonchero for a food truck owner for 25 years.
Y me preocupa la situación ahora real que está pasando.
And it really concerns me and worries me of the situation that is currently going on.
Toda mi vida de lonchero,
All of my life as a lunch truck operator, as a lunch truck worker,
yo y mi familia hemos trabajado ahí.
me and my family have been working at the lunch truck.
Mis hijos se han hecho responsables y se han enseñado a trabajar en la lonchera y han estado estudiando.
My children, my sons have been, they've actually been able to make themselves responsible by helping me with my lunch truck. And as a result of that, I have been able to provide for them for their schooling.
Tengo todos los permisos
I have all the permits necessary.
que son salubridad,
That includes health
licencia de
permits,
manejar,
driver's license,
licencia de la ciudad,
business permit,
manejo de alimentos
the health permit to dispense food,
y licencia de manejar.
and a driver's license.
Y he tratado siempre de cumplir con la ley.
And I have always tried to abide by the law and regulations that have been established for food trucks.
Y me preocupa que pudiera perder mi trabajo a mi edad.
And it really worries me that I would lose my only source of employment at my age.
Quisiera que si se hiciera esta ordenanza fuera una ordenanza justa,
If there is going to be an ordinance, I would like for it to be a just ordinance
en la cual podamos seguir trabajando
in which we could still be permitted to work
y contribuyendo a la ciudad
and contributing to the city
como en estos 25 años lo he hecho.
like I have been doing for the past 25 years.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mi nombre es Pedro Ruiz.
My name is Pedro
Director
Ruiz.
de la Asociación de Loncheros
I
de la
am
Unida de
part of the Association de Loncheros.
Quiero platicarles un poquito de la asociación.
I just want to briefly mention what the association has been
El
doing.
tiempo que llevamos 2 años.
We have been functioning for 2 years.
Teniendo talleres con nuestros miembros.
We have regularly have workshops with our members.
Tenemos aplicaciones para que llenen a cada uno de los miembros.
We have been teaching them how to apply for different permits
Para que tengan sus licencias y permisos al día.
so that they may have all the current up-to-date permits and regulations and laws, so they're operating accordingly to the law.
Y también para hablarles cómo ubicarse en su área de trabajo.
And we have stressed also the importance of abiding by good business practice, which is not to park
¿Y cómo tener buena relación con los residentes,
which is not,
restaurantes, negocios?
which is not to park in close proximity within 200 feet of a restaurant, of an established restaurant, and to have a relationship with the neighboring businesses around the area that we operate,
No parquearse a menos de 200 pies.
which is not to park within 200 feet of a restaurant.
Y para tener buena relación con los residentes y restaurantes, tener limpios lugares al llegar y al
And
retirar.
we also stress the importance of maintaining a clean area and providing a clean area for our clients, and just to not litter in the area that we operate in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mi nombre es Guadalupe Ariza.
My name is Guadalupe Ariza.
Soy miembro de la Asociación de Loncheros.
I am a member of the Asociación de Loncheros.
Me preocupa si no podíamos operar, yo no sé qué pasaría. Mis hijos dependen de mi trabajo, de la lonchera que tengo, ellos trabajan conmigo.
My children depend on me working at my lunch truck. That is my only source of employment. And they also help me.
Mi hija trabaja y estudia.
My oldest daughter works and studies.
Pues toda mi familia trabajamos en la lonchera, todos trabajamos.
Practically my entire family, we all work in my lunch truck, in our lunch truck.
Y pues no les puedo decir más que es todo, que trabaja toda mi familia ahí. Si paramos, pues sería una tristeza para mí, ¿verdad?
If we were not allowed or permitted to work, it would really be a tragedy for us. A great tragedy for us. And I actually forgot my paper over here. My name is Natalia, and I'm here on behalf of the UCLA Labor Center in support of La Asociación de Loncheros. The mobile food industry is a source of revenue for the city due to the financial contributions that catering food trucks make to the city and the state, in the form of paying for commissary fees, which is where trucks are housed to be cleaned and restocked, the cost of gas, health permits, DMV registration fees, business licenses, vendor permits, insurance, and taxes. Therefore, catering trucks are a great revenue source for the city, especially during this deep recession where revenue should be welcomed and not condemned. The issue before us deals specifically with competition between brick-and-mortar restaurants and catering food trucks concentrated on Wilshire Boulevard, and it should be dealt as such. The entire mobile food industry should not be penalized for the bad business practices of a few lunch trucks that have recently emerged. I ask that you take into consideration the propositions that we have made today before you, and we also would like to extend our support to the association. The UCLA Labor extends its full support of the association and considers its work to be beneficial to the community at large, and we look forward to continue working with your committee and other city officials.
Appreciate it.
Chair?
Appreciate it. Yes.
I know the Labor Center's done a report on this issue. I wonder if in our report back from staff, we can include them looking at that and including it in their analysis.
Very good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for translating. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Russell Brown, Kathleen Damata, is that correct? Damani, Lynn Myers, Randall Tampa. Start, Russell.
Hi, Russ Brown. I'm Executive Director of the Historic Downtown BID, which is Broadway, Spring, and Main, and I'm also President of the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council. We also manage the logistics of the monthly Art Walk, which actually is tomorrow or Thursday of this week with about 20,000 visitors. This event has single-handedly revitalized huge parts of the neighborhood and also made our neighborhood be an amazing creative venue with a lot of bars, shops, and restaurants. But we also have 40 food trucks that have now descended on the neighborhood. The last couple of months has been beyond a nightmare trying to manage these, as we've literally had to call in almost riot squad with LAPD and our bid security being unable to manage them, blocking driveways, blocking fire hydrants, blocking patrons in, blocking restaurants. Fortunately, just the last month, we were able to reach some kind of accommodation where we actually took the food trucks off the street and put them into dedicated parking lots. And Matt's here. We've been working really closely, so my hope is that this will work. But when food trucks are managed correctly, it can be a great benefit for a community event. When managed poorly, it destroys the neighborhood. So we definitely want to work some partnership to make
Thank you,
this work.
Russell.
Thanks.
Hello, good afternoon, council members. My name is Kathleen Damani, and I manage the old Greyhound building, which is called LA Merchandise Mart, for the Samco General Partnership Partners, and I've been there for 23 years. So I've seen a lot of what's going on. And our building takes up almost the whole city block, and the carts disturb our tenants on Los Angeles Street. They park their vehicles overnight so that they don't lose their parking space for the next day. And they block in front of the storefronts totally. I have pictures showing that totally blocks the storefront. You can't even see the store. And where they're complaining that the tenants are complaining because it's destroying their merchandise because of the smells and the constant, because I'm dealing with lunch carts, the carts that just park there. They're not lunch trucks. But anyway, and then even a tenant had to go to the expense of putting in a glass front where everybody's usually taking out their glass fronts to make it more accommodating. May I continue?
A little.
Accommodating to customers to easy access or whatever. He had to because the smell was so bad it was hurting his mother. She was getting sick. Anyway, so this is a problem that we really have. We've had it for a lot of years now, and the fact that they are permanently parked there, they don't move, they don't, even if they would just park along the street in different positions and, not hurt the same tenants over and over again. You talk about restrooms. Restrooms is a big problem. They even go into my restrooms, which they're not public restrooms. The tenants have keys, and they stand there till somebody will let them in. So talk about a slap in the face.
Okay.
Anyway, so we hope that we can come to something.
That's why we're all here. It's been a good hearing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Lynn Myers. I'm the managing director of the Fashion District Business Improvement District. We encourage the Transportation Committee and the City Council to more strictly regulate food vending vehicles, which routinely park all day, 7 days a week at hundreds of locations in the Fashion District. Not only does the district lose valuable street parking spaces, but adjacent merchants have to deal with the food smells that permeate the merchandise, the crowds of sidewalk diners who block the entrances to their stores, the traffic jams, the trash. Many more food vendors crowd the district on Saturdays and Sundays, which are our busiest shopping days. Our narrow sidewalks with large numbers of pedestrians were never designed for all of this kind of activity 365 days a year. If they want permanent business location, they should be required to rent a store. We also believe that vending trucks should be restricted in industrial zoned areas that have substantial retail uses and pedestrians like the Santee Alley and the Fashion District's 4,000 businesses that contribute $5 billion a year to the LA economy. We'd also like to be included on the task force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bonnie Bloomgarden, Terry Bloomgarden.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tampa, I apologize.
Sorry. Randall Tampa, also with the Fashion District, and I just want to reiterate and back up some of the stuff that Lynn was talking about. In the last 6 months, I'm the person that the merchants and the property owners call about the food vending vehicles. In the last 6 months, we've had almost 1,450 calls where the bid officers have had to go out and politely ask the trucks, the Cushman carts, please move because of the smoke and the damage they're causing to some of the merchandise. We do work with the LAPD on a daily basis. We do work with quite a number of the vending vehicles. Recently, within the past 6-8 months, we purchased 100-some trash receptacles for them to put bags in, and now we're working with 80 of the 100-some vehicles in the district picking up their trash. They give us a small stipend each month, and then we pick up their trash. So we are working with them. We have been working with the LAPD, the health department, and the carts, but we are asking, and it was mentioned earlier, that maybe the numbers can be reduced or a suitable number for the district. That's it.
Thank you. Excuse me for jumping so quick there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your comment. Bonnie Bloomgarden, Terry Bloomgarden, Andrew Cousins here, Jesus Hermosilio. Super. Thank you. You want to go?
Hi, hello, my name is Andrew Casagna. I'm here representing the California Restaurant Association today.
We have many members on both sides of this. A lot of our members are brick and mortar, and they now have vending trucks. So what we're asking for is just a fair level playing field. Make sure the vending trucks go through the same inspections, everything that a brick and mortar restaurant does, because at the end of the day, it is to do with public health. The only other concern we have is with the vending trucks, and this is not all the vending trucks, but some will park right in front of a restaurant. And most of them actually work with the restaurants, but we do have occasions where you heard about in Wilshire and Hollywood, we get those phone calls also about trucks just pulling up right in front and setting up camp all day. So we just want to make sure we're part of the task force, and we can bring our local board if needed for the LA chapter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes, my name is Jesus Hermosillo. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I was invited to present on the preliminary findings of a research study that I am doing for my thesis for master's degree in the Urban Planning Department of UCLA, and for the Downtown Labor Center as well. And so among the things that I have found while researching the loncheras for the last several months, and I also want to clarify that I've been focusing on loncheras, which are the way I've defined them. I think the way most people define them is by their locational behavior. It's those food trucks that are parked semi-permanently in one location. They're not moving around very much. So they are mobile because they can move, but they are parked in one location every day. And so what we have found is that the pattern is among loncheras is that they tend to go to areas where there are no other food options. When they are in residential zones, they are in areas where they are popular among the residents because those are their customers. They also tend to work in the same areas and same neighborhoods where they live. So they are very community-based, and they are recycling the profits in those communities. They're very good for the local economy, for economic development in communities in that respect. They also tend to. I just want to respond to. I've heard several times that food trucks don't have any overhead. They actually do pay quite a bit in rent at commissaries. The average or rates in the Los Angeles area at a commissary for a parking spot go from between $800 and $1,000 a month, which it turns out to be like $3 or $4 per square foot, which is comparable to retail spaces in other parts of Los Angeles. Basically, if we count the 814 that we have limited data that we haven't been able to get any from the Los Angeles the Office of Finance on the business licenses issued to food trucks. But so I'm going on the data that is available from the Health Department, and 814 more or less are registering addresses in the city of Los Angeles. So if we were to take a low-grossing food truck, which makes about $160 in gross sales every day, amounting to about $50,000 a year in gross sales, then we're looking, and we multiply that by the 814 food trucks that we think might be in Los Angeles. We actually think there are a lot more than that. Then we're looking at a contribution of $31 million in fuel and supplies and commissary fees into the local economy, and we're also looking at close to $5 million in fees and taxes. I have an updated expense sheet.
But you're a student, right?
Yes.
I gave you the extra time because you're a student.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. Good report. Okay. Thank you.
Terry Bloomgarden, co-owner of Cantor's Fairfax and the food truck. One of the things that isn't being mentioned here regarding the food trucks is the education that they haven't received in the past. If every truck has to be in a commissary at night, this should be the point of where we have to educate people to the changes of laws, changes of rules that they may not be aware of. I'm hearing all of these things about zoning and about areas and things that are not being enforced. A very good point was brought up. If there are laws in existence and we add more laws and they're not observing the ones now, why will they observe things in the future? Part of it is the education that they're not receiving. Nobody wants competition where you have a brick and mortar and somebody parks a truck right in the middle of your business. That's not ethical. People have to be aware and have respect for both sides. The trucks are bringing such great community and support from all over this country. We had problems with the convention center where people were canceling 3-4 years out We have people coming here now respecting the city. This is one of the most positive things that is happening in the city. Every magazine you pick up, everything that you read about has these trucks. You have your food shows on trucks. It is such a positive thing that Los Angeles has been missing. And I respect all the people that have been doing this in the past, and we need to find some way that we can get everyone together and work together on this.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Bloomgarden, and I run the Canner's food truck. Food trucks are providing affordable, healthful, and creative options for eating in a difficult economic time. People all over the country and the world are looking at Los Angeles as a culinary hotspot. We provide positive attention to the city daily in the news, television, and on the internet. We often partner with businesses to share our customer bases, bringing people from all over to areas and businesses they otherwise would not know about. We pay taxes, rent, pay each city we vend in, and employ thousands. I would like to see the city utilize trucks and their popularity for the betterment of its people and to continue to make LA a special place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk on Ray Villamon, Shannon Dawson, and Alfredo. How do you pronounce it? Alfredo Magallanes. And these are the last cards. If anybody did want to speak and didn't fill out a card, thank you. Nate, state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Villiman. Thank you for holding the public forum. I'll be brief. I'm a former executive director of the California Restaurant Association. I own restaurants. I'm a co-founder of a company called Moby Munch that also provides online and offline infrastructure to the mobile food industry. There's no question that we're here today to resolve and try to create some harmony between brick and mortar as well as mobile food. Just wanted to provide the council with some perspective of what we've been watching for the last couple of years. The growth of this industry is tremendous. It's not going away. We have a website that has over 500 gourmet food trucks listed in 29 different cities. You're seeing LA being the example, city after city, of how to create these ordinances that brick and mortar live in harmony with the mobile food trucks.
Yeah, does Pasadena allow them?
Excuse me?
Pasadena City allow them?
Yeah.
They allow them anywhere on Colorado? They allow them the same way that they have them out on Wilshire Boulevard?
I mean, what you find is that there's a wide variety of municipalities all over the board.
Right.
And so once we're in agreement that let's get the plain rules right. Let's live in harmony. Let's coexist. But just wanted to emphasize that this is just a growing industry. It's moving in the right direction, and we want to be part of that.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name's Shauna Dawson. I'm the founder of an event called the LA Street Food Fest. And I'd like to just speak to what this movement and really the revitalization of street food in Los Angeles has been doing, not only for community, but really for our economy at large, which a number of people have already spoken to. But just to give the board a little bit of what we do, we had our first event that was born actually of my unemployment last year. I looked at what was happening with street food. I looked at how many new entrepreneurs and new small business owners were moving into a marketplace they otherwise wouldn't have been able to enter, and was really inspired by that, as well as being inspired by the food, being a native Angelino and having grown up with these lunch trucks that you guys are talking about. And so we did this event thinking optimistically maybe we'd have 3,000 to 5,000 people. This was in February at LA Center Studios. And with less than 3 weeks of promotion, we drew record crowds of more than 20,000 people downtown. Needless to say, we couldn't accommodate all of those people, but it really spoke to the fact that people are responding to this. They want to continue to see this happening. They're really interested in the food. And more importantly, they're spending dollars in the city when they're doing it. May I continue?
Sure.
Thank you. So again, not only are they spending dollars when they're doing it, so are we. I mean, needless to say, it's not free to produce these events. We're paying additional fees on top of what these vendors already do to all of the different permit agencies, in addition to, of course, taking a number of other services and employing people in the process. So we did this again. To answer your question about Pasadena, we actually took the event to Pasadena in July. We did 5,000 pre-sale tickets that sold out in
Where in Pasadena?
the Rose Bowl.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And ended up doing something a little bit different. We subsidized the participation of all of our vendors, which, created an opportunity to have a great event, support them in what they were doing, support the city again with all the fees that were being paid, et cetera, and how much was being pumped into the local economy, not to mention our local charitable beneficiaries. We were able to fund 3 school gardens out of this, as well as donate a substantial sum to St. Vincent Meals on Wheels, which I think is important because, again, these things are engendering and fostering community and creating jobs, which I know is a concern to Councilmember Alarcon.
Very good.
I just want to wrap it up for you, but I really want to, in fact, I'll wrap it up by speaking to some of what Councilmember Koretz brought up, because I'm actually your constituent and I live in Carthay Circle. And I know part of your concern is, why aren't things being enforced? And I have to say that as a constituent, I've asked myself that question many times because I know that despite living on a permit street, none of those issues are enforced. And in fact, the only time I ever see anything enforced in our neighborhood is when it has to do with essentially limiting free enterprise of these small business owners, which is deeply concerning to me.
Very good. Thank you. Jed?
I have to add, by the way, I actually tried to go to your event at Center Studios, and it was so packed I got there and just gave up. But it clearly was very successful.
Well, we hope we have you back at another one.
Well, let me know.
Jed Polker, Venice, California. This is the last card. Thank you.
Thank you for having this hearing. I'm from the Venice Neighborhood Council, though I'm representing no official opinion of theirs at this point. Next Tuesday, we're going to, the board of the Venice Neighborhood Council, on which I also serve, is going to consider and probably make a vote on the issue of valet parking and food trucks, which I have been studying with the task force for 2 months. Robin Rudison and I have been studying the issue because, as you may know, on Abbott Kinney, we've had a proliferation of food trucks over the last couple of years. Also, interestingly, on Windward Avenue, there's a situation that's very similar to Mr. Labange's district in that it's mostly business-to-business issues. You see all the businesses getting together to prevent the food trucks from coming in there, whereas in Abbott Kinney, it's a much more integrated issue. You have also the residents involved. What we've seen in our conversations and research over the last 2 months, we've researched also all over the country. We have posted on our website, as your first speaker showed here, what we've seen in our research and in our conversation is that through the dialogue we've had with the various vendors, the representatives of the businesses, the representatives of the residents and the food trucks, through these dialogues, we've seen a self-regulation that has improved the situation and promises to improve the situation going forward. I strongly recommend that you work on mitigation and moderation over regulation in this issue, because I think you're going to get a lot greater success going forward.
Thank you very much. That completes the public hearing, unless someone stands up right now. Since no one stood up right now, we'll complete this public hearing. We ask for 45, 60 days, whatever the question is, whatever can be done. We'll check with Mr. Rosendahl as the committee chair. But in the intervening time, I know I'm going to reach out again to organizations to ask to tour during those who are available, who are not on their trucks, to tour some of the areas, to look at some solutions. Also with someone from the legislative office of the Department of Transportation, our city attorneys, to get the concept, can it create a space, and how much space could be created for that. Also, I'll ask Detective Sergeant Harriito to give input from any part of the police department and the county health department. I think this has been a great start, that we've had this opportunity to discuss all these issues. And these issues then will be heard again in committee. But in the meeting weeks, we hope to find a date where we could go look at it together and see what some of the challenges are as we go forward. With that, members, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Richard. Have a good day. Thank you, Paul.
Very good.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. I want to pay attention to this.